All right, hello, and let's finish up our trigonometric unit by talking about how the unit circle and sine and cosine and all that stuff can be graphed. We're going to be talking about two specific functions today. These are called trigonometric functions, trigonometric graphs. Sometimes they're called sinusoidal functions, and they're of the form some number times sine of some number times x plus c, or some number times cosine of some number times x plus c. And I'll talk about what a, b, and c mean a little bit later. So what do these functions look like, and what are they modeled from? Well, first, let me show you what the sine function actually comes from. So watch this video real closely. Basically, the y value of the unit circle being plotted over one complete circle. All right, and so as you can see, it starts right at the x-axis. Let me play that again so we can see that. Starts right at the x-axis, goes up to 1, comes back down right here. Let me pause that. Right there at that number is halfway, but a little more than halfway between 2 and 4. That turns out to be pi, because 1/2 of a circle is pi radians. So if you complete the whole circle, that would be a little over 6.28, that's 2 pi radians. And the same can be done with cosine. All right, this one's a little bit more crude, but you can get the point. It has the same type of pattern. It curves as the circle goes around. Starts at 1, goes down again halfway here would be, let me move back a little bit. Too many things. So halfway here is, again, more than 3, that's pi. This just happens to be the bottom of the function. The max is at 1, the min's at -1. And if it goes along through the whole cycle, it will eventually top out back at 1, a little bit more than 6, which is 2 pi. All right, so it follows the circular motion. Now what's going to happen is, when you graph these, you're going to go to Desmos, and you're going to make sure that your mode is set to radians, which it is. We don't want to do these in degrees because degrees are too big. So we want to keep it in radians. And we're going to look at two functions. We're going to do sin of x, and we can put the x in parentheses. And it's cyclical. That means it's going to keep going on and on forever in both directions. Notice that it starts at 0, and that's the middle. We call that the midline. It goes up to 1, goes back down to 0, but it's not finished yet, because it's going to down to -1 and then come up again to 0. And at that point, it starts its cycle over again. So these 5 points are very important when you're graphing the sine functions, because usually when you graph it, you graph what we call one period. And that period represents this distance here from 0 to a little bit over 6, which is 2 pi. Desmos will actually give you 2 pi, which is really nice. Cosine is going to be similar, but let me hide the sine so you can see the difference. The cosine has the same shape, but it starts at the maximum value. So as it goes through those 5 points, they're going to be in a different position, but they're still going to give you one complete cycle. So it'll go from this max here, the peak, to the peak. So now the only difference between where it starts, so a sine is going to always start at the midline, which is the middle number here. If you throw a negative out front, it's still going to start at the midline, but instead of going up first, it'll go down first. Okay. With a cosine, it'll start at the maximum value and go down, then come back up, go down, back up. If it's got a negative out front, it'll start at the minimum value. And it'll go up and come back down, and up and come back down, forever and ever and ever. But it's still gonna have that same shape and same pattern to it. So really, what's involved is sine will start at the midline, whether it's got a positive out front, such as this one here, or it's got a negative out front. It's still going to start at the middle number, go down, up, come back up, and go down again. Cosine, if it's got a positive out front, will start at the maximum. If it's got a negative out front, we'll start at the minimum. So in the next couple of videos, I'll show you how to mess with these three numbers here. But I just wanted to give you a general idea of what these functions look like. Thank you for watching.